Please stand by as we get ready to launch another episode of this reality radio CafeCast with your host and my husband, Denny J, K5DCC.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
Talking about his mission downrange.
Now grab your glass and get ready to fill it up with some radio on the rocks.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Digicom Cafe. Professor Jim and I are here in the cafe, and we invite you all to come and join us. The link, yeah, he's wearing my shirt. Good job. Mine's hidden. Very good, very good. I like the shirt. Anyway, we're here in our virtual cafe, and we invite anyone who would like to join us to download the graphic you see in the background. What in the world is that?
Well, some people say when I talk, I just shoot a lot of bull.
Very good. Well, anyway, those of you that would like to join us, there's a link there in the chat session. I should turn my radio off here. Go ahead and download that background image and add it as your virtual background in Zoom. So we all will appear right here at the table with our coffee. And whenever you speak, you'll pop in the middle and it'll be very professional looking. And we want to welcome Professor Jim, who thank you, Jim, for setting up your Zoom session for us without time limit.
You're welcome. Good morning, everyone.
Show us your shirt again.
Oops, I gotta shift the camera. Oops. Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, very good. And you'll notice that it's when we talk that we show up on the screen here. So if you want someone to be seen, I guess everyone else has to shut up.
Well, that depends upon if you're in speaker view or gallery view. It's user's choice. If you're in speaker view, the screen fills with whoever is speaking. If you're in gallery view, you see smaller icons of everybody that's in the group. At the moment, only 2.
Here we go. So now we're in side-by-side gallery view and I'm recording. So anyway, this is what we're going to do from now on for our CafeCast because I can always use the audio portion as our audio podcast, our CafeCast as we call them. But if we have something especially interesting with a special guest, we can always share this as a video CafeCast in our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just look for Digicom Cafe and hit that big old subscribe button in the video. And you may be a star someday. Come join us. I see Daniel is saying that he's kind of busy or something. Let me go check our chat channel. So Daniel says, sorry, we'll have to catch up later, catch the recording. I have cakes to deliver. Oh my, look at those cakes. Talk about getting fat, Jim. So what's new in the world of FT8, or as we call it, the cicada tree?
Well, I got Norway this morning, and I'm attempting to get Iceland with, let me see if I have any luck. No, I just keep trying to connect to that Iceland guy.
I think I saw those guys out there this morning. I was trying to work them myself. I saw Russia out there. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any luck, and I've turned all that off because I don't want any interference or weird glitches happening during our Zoom session. So,
well, I suppose I should do that too, taking the cue from my mentor. Hang on.
And there goes Professor Jim under the table. It looks so weird when you're walking away from the camera. I should just select you and then we can, I don't know if I can do that or not. I'll put it in gallery view so we can see. There's the back of his chair. There he comes back from under the table. It's always cute. Of course, he couldn't hear me talking about him.
So what did you say? Was it important?
It just looks interesting. When you walk away, you kind of shrink down and go under the table.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
This you ask what this bull was. Whoops. I've got to do everything in reverse. It's like shaving in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's the symbol of Philmont Scout Ranch. So people who've been to Philmont and hiked the mountains there can wear that bull on their red wool coat. I'm wearing 2 t-shirts and a wool coat in my basement.
Pretty chilly over there, huh?
It is chilly. Well, I don't think we have the furnace on. Why would we have the furnace on in mid-May?
Right.
And it gets kind of cold at night.
Yep. I understand you're well grounded this morning.
I am well grounded. In fact, it was some source of consternation. I do a lot of reading about what I don't know about. And what I've found is that if you sink your own ground rod for your equipment, and my ground rod is in a window well, it's actually well below the surface ground, probably 4 feet. The top of it's probably 4 feet above the lawn, below the lawn, right at level. Yeah. And then it goes pretty close to 8 feet on down. Not quite, because I've got to attach some lightning arresters and my equipment ground to the top of it. And so I read that I'm supposed to tie my ground rod to the ground rod where the electricity comes into the house, the main power supply to the house. That goes into the box in the garage where the circuit breakers are and all that. So I could see this wire coming out of the ground that in fact was insulated, but when you carve the insulation off, there was a 10 gauge copper wire in there. Well, the instructions are to use 6 gauge copper wire to tie the 2 ground rods together. So that bothered me. Can I put a 6 gauge wire on a 10 gauge wire, and will that be sufficient? Intellectually, I thought, no, probably not. Why? If you're running, which by the way is very expensive, if you're running 6 gauge wire almost to the end, why would you tie it to a 10 gauge wire and destroy the 6 gauge connection? Didn't make any sense to me. But I pondered the question, and I had a visit by a Duke Energy engineer who was very kind to swing by. And he pointed out that was the ground rod that went to the old telephone box. We don't use that box anymore because we get our telephone services through our fiber. So we don't have the traditional old copper wire telephone box. It's just an empty box. And so he said, just follow that wire on down and you'll find the service ground rod, which they bury, by the way. They don't just put it to the top of the ground, they bury it. And he said it could be buried as much as 2 feet. And typically they're 6 feet long, not 8 feet long, which is what hams use. So and of course this is right smack dab next to where the wiring comes into the house, and you've got a shovel in your hands and you're thinking, oh no, if I cut the service to the house, number one, will I kill myself? Number two, if I don't kill myself, will I incur the wrath of my spouse for cutting the electricity in the house?
And ruining your game.
And yes, she won't be able to be in her game room until that's solved. So, in fact, that was probably the most serious fear. I had no fear of being electrocuted. I mean, you got to go some way, somehow. And so it was incurring the wrath of my wife that was really what caused caution in me. So I dug and scraped the dirt away and made a pile of dirt and got down pretty far, at least, maybe 18 inches. And that wire stopped going down and started going sideways towards where the wire was going into the house, the power wires. So this made me a little bit more nervous because now I'm digging really close to where I know those wires are. And so I called Duke Energy again. I said, I got a couple of follow-up questions for the engineer that came out to my house. And he said, call me if you have any questions. Well, getting the Duke engineer, Duke service people who answer the phone to understand what I'm trying to do, and that I want to have a follow-up question for the particular engineer, that took 2 calls, and whatever they did to have him call me hasn't worked yet in over a week. And so the other day I just said, I need more sleep at night. This is bothering me. I can't sleep because I need to know if I can tie a 6-gauge wire to a 10-gauge wire, which intellectually I knew I probably shouldn't do. And I just kept carefully digging. And then I thought I hit a rock. And I dug around a little bit more, and well, no, that looks like brass. That doesn't look like a rock. And I carefully dug a little bit more around it, went out to the garage and got an old broom and kind of swept the dirt off. I found a ground rod. And indeed, it was just smack dab right next to where those service wires were coming in. And so then I kind of carefully dug around it to get, a little bit of working space. And, it had one of those clamps that you have this big old screw that you draw everything tight against the ground rod with. And I thought, I think there's enough space. I'll just loosen that screw, clean all the dirt off the threads, poke something down in that space where it was going into and knock the dirt out of there. And then I got some water and poured the water around in there to kind of wash it out. And then I got some dry towels and stuck it down in there to dry off the water. And of course, that old ground rod, it's just black, I have no idea what it. So then what I did, I have some copper infused grease I got when I was hooking up my lightning arresters and the clamp that goes on the ground rod and so forth to keep the stainless steel bolts from corroding. And that's what DX Engineering that recommends anyway. So I had a little can of that copper infused grease. So I poked some of that down in the space and worked it around. And then I sandpapered off the end of my copper wire to get it really, really clean and stuck it in there, then I sanded the end of that brass bolt off. So it was real shiny. And I put that in there real tight and put the dirt back in. And my wife had people coming out to put mulch down and all that. And I talked to the guy that was doing that out of my wife's hearing. And I said, look, see that hole there? I'm working in that hole for a while yet. Just leave me a pile of mulch after you guys leave today, and I'll take care of the rest of it. And so I got that hooked up. I guided it around the house down into the window well where my ground rod was, and kind of halfway buried it under mulch and spread the mulch he left me. And he left me just the right amount of mulch. These guys know just how big a pile it's going to take because they do it every day. And I hooked that ground rod up to my ground rod, and I was so happy. I am so well grounded now. So I should not have a possibility of a ground loop, whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever that is. Well, I think I can picture how they put that thing in there. You know, when they were building your house, they had the foundation of brick or whatever it is. Maybe it's a poured wall, but all that dirt was pulled away. They probably stuck it in the ground before they backfilled all around your foundation of your house, I'll bet.
That's undoubtedly how they do it. And he said that's the way all new houses are built. They sink that they usually use a 6-foot ground rod, but he says the top of that may be as far as 2 feet under the ultimate ground level.
Yeah.
So you have to. It's not. It's
but,
not handy. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Is that clay that they put in there? What kind of soil was it?
Well, we some years ago, my wife decided she wanted a brick walk that went from our driveway around to the back side of the house where we had a patio. And our son was home one day from college, or he was home for the summer actually. And we decided he needed a project to keep him occupied. And my wife decided he would build that brick sidewalk. Well, we had a little, I think the brand name was Mantis, Mantis. It's like a little tiny rototiller, 2-stroke, and it's for small gardens, right? You can, it's so small you can go between the rows of wherever you're planting and till up the earth. Or, you know, if you've got soft dirt, you can till up your entire garden with that thing. It's pretty ingenious, actually. And because it was 2-stroke, it was pretty powerful for its size. Well, I got that thing out. I took my son out to show him how to get the grass, the part of the earth that has all the grass in it and all those roots, grass roots and so forth. We need to get that up so we can dig down a little bit so we can put some sand in and level that all out before we put the bricks in. Well, that little Mantis just bounced off the grass. it would not do anything. So then I rented an 8-horsepower giant rototiller. So that got the grass up all right. But oh my, it sort of bounced off the dirt too. So, well, we decided, okay, we'll just get the garden hose out and water this down. That'll solve that problem. Well, you have to have just the right amount of water. You've got to have enough, but you can't have too much. If you have too much, you're creating a kind of clay infused mud.
Oh man.
Which just clogs up the tines so they can't do anything.
Not to mention it sticks all over your shoes and your boots.
Oh yeah.
Building up, and then you want to go in the house and walk across that new carpeting.
So finally we figured out just the right amount of sprinkling that would dampen the earth just enough that we could actually rototill down an inch or two, you know, so we could lay a sand bed down. Yeah. So then I bought the bricks, and I had put in a patio in our earlier house, and it had kind of a herringbone pattern, which means you've got to cut bricks, right? Because you have odd pieces at the edge. So I had a brick cutting tool, which is basically like a giant chisel, right? Mm-hmm. And all you do is you put that thing crossways on the brick and hit it with like a 2 or 4 pound hammer, and it creates a little dent. And as I recall, you turn the brick over and do it on the other side, and it just shears it right like that. So I found my tool, and I took my son out to the backyard with this pile of bricks, and I said, Brian, let me show you how to cut bricks. And I put that tool on this brick, and I hit it with a 4 pound hammer, and my hand just vibrated like that. And it really hurt. And I looked at the brick. You could not even see a mark on that brick. So then I found out there's lots of different kinds of bricks. One of them you can easily score with a hand tool and a hammer, and it just cracks right off. The other kind, you need a saw. Yeah. So then I went to rent a saw, and then we had to saw those bricks. Well, that sidewalk that went around from the driveway to the backyard patio took most of the summer. And by the end of it, my son and I referred to it as the walk of death.
I would call it the path of insanity.
Well, you know, when my wife and his mother want something done,
yeah,
I haven't been married for 52 years from nothing, you know.
Yeah. Oh my. Well, I think it sounds like you're about done with your ham station setup. You got it grounded and your antennas in the air. And of course, you got to build some more antennas. Are you going to build one of those Barber pole?
I am. But, you know, yesterday we were going out to the Mother's Day brunch. And in the car, my wife said, that big old black wire hanging down from your antenna on the backside of the house doesn't look very good. You know, it's
Oh no,
coax as big as your finger. And I said, well, I could paint it. That would be a good idea.
Oh my.
So now I've got to figure out, I don't know how I'm going to do that. First of all, I had a friend come over and get up on the it's just under the overhang of a 2-story house.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy to paint the top of that coax. First of
and
all,
you're going to have to do it camouflage too.
Well, I don't have any paint. So first of all, I'm going to have to go get some paint.
Spray paint.
No, I'll probably, because I need some touch-up paint for the house, I'll probably just get regular paint and try to paint it with a brush. And secondly, I don't know how the surface of coax takes paint. I suppose it will.
Oh, it does. It does. I've done it myself.
Yeah. But my 440 slot antenna I'm going to put up attached to the house, I'm going to pre-paint the ladder line before I connect it.
I think you should get some of those solar driven light things, you know, with the string of lights and just wrap it around it. It'll look very festive.
Well, you know, the what are we going to call it? The Barber pole antenna that John Portune talked about in your last video cast. It's not for 2 meters. It's not very tall. I mean, the whole thing is built on a 3-foot long piece of PVC, and part of that is you can stick it in the ground. The antenna is not that long. You just go out and stick it in the ground somewhere. And it occurred to me that I might be able to sell that project. I already have the copper tape on order. I've got to sell the project to my wife, however. She likes to plant tomatoes in the summer. She gets these sort of fabric round containers and dumps potting soil in them and plants tomatoes. Well, that PVC on that antenna has an end cap just to keep the rain out of the inside. It doesn't need an end cap, just to make it look nice, I suppose. But one could arrange a summer end cap and a winter end cap, because you don't have to really glue that on there. You just stick it on there. The summer end cap would have cross arms on it, which could be, I don't know, 2 pieces of aluminum bar at right angles to one another, held in with 1 bolt, let's say. And then the piece of PVC that you're building the antenna on could be taller than he specified as the minimum. He specified 3 feet for a 2-meter antenna. Well, make it 6 feet. And then the summer end cap would have these crossbars on it, which you could hang string from, and attach your tomato plants. Let the tomato plants climb up these strings. So
there goes your SWR.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, I imagine it would affect the SWR. Yeah. Definitely.
All right.
Nice idea, though.
Good thing I haven't talked about that in advance to my wife.
Yeah, right.
I guess the 3-foot version.
You
Painted.
could tell her that the copper tape on that PVC is to keep the slugs out of your plants. The snails.
She's smart enough to know that that's not.
But I guess that's what they use those copper strip tape for.
Yes.
You put them on your flower pot. It's supposed to keep at least that's what John was saying, keeps the snails out of your plants.
Yep. And that's the way it's advertised.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It must have some use.
Yeah. So what have you got for our what if question of the day?
Well, what if having freckles could save your life? Now, that's a question to ponder.
My wife has freckles, and they get larger and they melt together in the summer.
Ah. Well, she has a life-saving feature. Have you ever eaten at Red Lobster?
Yes.
You probably don't have one in your little town. You probably have to go to Branson.
Oh, Branson or Springfield.
Yeah. Big town. Always has Red Lobster. And we used to go to one regularly in Minnesota when the kids were little. So obviously, Red Lobster has lobster.
And they're red.
Usually. Not
red
always.
Lobster.
Not always. So the employees at a Red Lobster in Virginia noticed a very unusual calico lobster with blue and orange polka dots, which they nicknamed Freckles. And this was so unusual that the employees didn't cook this lobster up, but rather notified management and said, this is something special. In fact, a calico lobster with blue and orange spots is a 1 in 30 million occurrence.
Wow.
It's very rare. And so now that lobster resides in a permanent exhibit of natural history stuff. It's alive, doing well, so that visitors can come in and see this lobster. But in reading this article, I learned that there are split lobsters. There are blue lobsters. Now, normally you don't, the blue lobsters occur more regularly, but normally you don't see them because the lobstermen, when they catch them, usually put them back in the sea. There's also split lobsters, which have two different colors, but they're split right down the middle. And those are not as rare as this calico lobster. So, we tend, it made me think about how we interact socially. We tend to be attracted to people who think like us and look like us and so forth. And we tend not to think about differences, but differences are to be celebrated. We have both similarities that draw us to certain groups of people. Might be a church group, might be a old man's coffee group, whatever, might be a motorcycle club. But also within our circles, we have people with unique differences. Might be a different color of skin, might be a disability. It might be something that, quote, is different. And this just made me think that rare things should be recognized and celebrated. What do you think?
I think that's why you're here.
Oh, I doubt that.
You're uniquely different from me and my typical circles that I've grown up around. And I just love our friendship, growing relationship. I love the uniquenesses that we both have. And I think we're demonstrating that ability to work together, even though we don't have maybe exactly the same worldview or political persuasion or faith journey, because we appreciate our differences, don't we?
I think we do.
Yeah.
And uh, I think that if we all appreciated differences, there would be less racial strife. There would be, well, fewer wars. There would just, the world would be better off.
Yeah. So what do you think causes that strife between people of different persuasions? Is it a threat? Is it I don't understand why we have to feel so uncomfortable and become judgmental with people that are different than us. What do you think is the source of that?
I think it's perceived threat. It's usually not actual threat, I think. But my wife and I, as white people, when our kids were little, we decided to take action to expose them to different cultures. Our first house that we lived in, as opposed to apartments, was in South Minneapolis. And the school that the kids would normally have gone to was virtually all white. And we purposely decided to bus our kids into an inner city school where there were African American children and Hmong refugees and Native American children and so forth, so that they would be exposed to other kids of different skins and different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall, if I'm trying to remember, that's a long ways back to remember, but schools had quota systems in those days. And I found, all parents occasionally have concerns with whatever happens in school. Their kid comes home with some complaint, and the parent, well, I'm going to investigate this, see what's going on. And I was usually the one that did that, although my wife's a lawyer. I was the one that got cranked up and could be assertive, more than lawyer assertive, I think. And so I'd make a call to a school official at this inner city school, and because they just barely had enough white kids to keep their percentages with the way they should be, boy, whatever I said over the phone got immediate action because my kids are there by choice. We bused them to that school by choice. And if we withdrew our kids from that school, they were right at the edge of their percentage. And so I had all my concerns immediately taken care of. And some of them were just, just checking things out. For example, this was back in the days when schools were getting a computer, right? And they were trying to give their kids a little experience on the computer. And so our daughter comes home and she says, well, some of the kids are getting some time on the computer. Have you had any time on the computer? No. Well, who's had time on the computer? Well, Joey and Jimmy and Johnny and Frankie and, oh, wait a minute. There's no girl's name in there. Well, right away, I'm upset. Why isn't my female child having access to that computer? So I called the school. And the explanation was quite understandable. I perfectly well understood as an educator at that age, which I think was first or second grade, whenever it was. If they have a mixed class with that kind of experience, the boys take over. And so they were having the boys go, and then the girls were going to go, and the boys just happened to be first. No big deal. The girls were going to have their experience. So but that action we took as a parent made our kids, as they grew up, their best friends were of different colors. And that, I don't think that would have happened if we put them in an all white school as when they were really just beginning to have social interactions with other kids.
Yeah. I think our hobby is quite segmented too.
It is.
We don't see a lot of women in this hobby, but I'm very proud to say our local ham radio club, we met this last week, and we had probably 23 in attendance, and I'll bet nearly half of those were women. So exciting to see the women getting involved. And in fact, I was supposed to connect with one of the gals in our state here in our region who runs a lot of nets, and we want to do her story. I need to send her an email again. She said something about maybe on the 10th she'd be available, so I need to get in touch with her. But anyway, back to your calico. You know, we shouldn't be afraid to be different and be who we are and not hide our uniqueness. In fact, I think in your coax situation, you ought to make it calico.
Oh, yeah.
Is that too different?
That would cause me to paint it twice, not once.
And it would probably be very noticed then. All the neighbors going by, look at that weird calico wire.
No, but nobody's noticed in 2 weeks. Nobody's noticed my antenna. Yeah. Well, I can hardly notice it myself. It's a black wire against dark green trees. You know,
why would your wife notice it?
She notices a big old thick coax.
Yeah.
The house is painted yellow, and black coax against a yellow house is noticeable.
Yeah. Well, I just talk about noticing something. I put mine into gallery view, and I noticed when I look over to your picture there, you're on the left. Which way is my eyes looking? The opposite way?
Yeah. Well, you're looking. Oh, well, you're looking to the right of the screen, but to your left shoulder.
Okay. So now if I take the picture and interchange them, and now I look over to you, which way am I looking?
You're looking over your right shoulder and to the left of the screen.
But not towards you. So that is so weird. You'd think it would follow. So I want to make it look like I'm looking in your direction, but I have to look the opposite direction to make it look like I'm looking at you. And if I change pictures, orientation, now if I look at you, I'm looking outside the screen again. It's weird.
So just look dead center at your camera. Then it doesn't matter. It's
How's that?
Neutral screen direction.
Well, then I got to look up. Now I'm looking at my camera, but then I can't look at you in real life.
So if I look at my big screen, it's where I can see everything nice, I'm looking up. But if I look at my laptop, I'm looking right in.
Yeah. So now to look at you and to see you all out there, I'm kind of looking up towards my camera. So it looks like I'm paying attention to you, which that says a lot too about our social interaction.
By the way,
have you ever been with someone who just can't look you in the eye?
Yes, it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
It's like, I always prided myself in having a firm handshake, but I've pulled back from that. And I had an experience. In fact, just a couple of years ago, I had to have some physical therapy. No, that was more than a couple of years ago. I broke my arm in a motorcycle accident, and so I had to have physical therapy. When the cast came off, the physician wrote an order for physical therapy. And I thought, well, what do I need physical therapy for? And he said, just go. So the first thing they do, they've got this analog instrument. You just squeeze it, and it's got a meter at the top. And when you squeeze it, it makes the needle move. And I squeezed that with my left fist, and the needle went pretty far over. I squeezed it with the right. I couldn't make it move. And then I knew why I had to have physical therapy. In just 5 weeks, however long that cast was on, you lose muscle tone. At any rate, at some later point, I had that same test performed, and my broken hand was back to full function. And I squeezed that thing, and the therapist was just amazed. Whatever units it measured, I was at 121, and normal was 80. And so I have a really strong grip. So I was helping a colleague with a research study, and we were going out into the field. We were going to interview this woman on video. I was helping him do that. And her husband comes home, and she introduces me to him, and I grab his hand and give my really firm handshake. And he crumbles to the floor in agony. And it turned out that he had just taken the cast off his hand that day. He'd fractured his hand.
Oh my.
And so, I was so apologetic. I was just, we always pride ourselves on a firm handshake, but when you make somebody crumple to the ground in pain, it makes you rethink that, and he must have originally been from Minnesota, because he said, "Oh, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have offered him my hand." He had that, even though he lived in Indiana, he was that Minnesota nice kind of a person.
Yeah. Well, everybody is different, and because of that, we need to interact with them differently. That's kind of being sensitive. Some people are extroverts, some are introverts. Some people you can feel very uncomfortable very easily. Sometimes looking directly into their eyes makes them uncomfortable. So we need to be sensitive to our unique differences, as you mentioned earlier. And we just want to make sure everybody feels welcome here in the cafe. As we always say, everyone is welcome, license or no license, radio or no radio, faith or no faith. You're all welcome here, as we all learn to listen to one another, acknowledge one another, respect one another in this culture of kindness. So again, we want to invite anybody that's interested to come and participate. This is just a bunch of hams or non-hams having fun, talking about radio communications, and a lot of things that apply to that across, like me, I'm always internalizing these things and drawing parallels to real life situations. And Jim's real good at that too. Now we get really deep sometimes. So put on the hip boots and enjoy the fellowship. But this has been great. Thanks again, Jim, for your faithfulness here, for being a good friend, and have a fun radioactive day.
Well, thank you very much, Denny. 7 threes to you and to anyone who may be listening.
Yep. And I won't be here tomorrow, so Professor Jim will be running the show tomorrow. Come and join him, keep him company. Make sure you get your cup of coffee.
But wait a minute, how can I talk to myself? That's not going to work.
Well, maybe Daniel will come in here, or somebody else will come in. If nobody shows up, you don't have to do anything.
Well, I might try it, but if nobody shows up, I'm out of here, because I enjoy the banter back and forth with you and whoever else we bring in. By the way, is there anybody else to bring in? Nobody else joined us, right?
Nope. I think they're all afraid to see themselves on the big screen.
Well, maybe
yesterday we did have Veo showed up, in Finland. And he's got the background set up on his computer too. And he's got some interesting projects he's been working on. So Veo, if you're out there listening this morning, come in and keep Jim company tomorrow and talk about the repeater that you donated to your club with the duplexer that you built and repurposed. Looks like a pretty neat project. And he also sent me some links and PDF files. A friend of his, they use a platform called SVX Link, which is kind of like Echolink that they build into their repeaters too. So maybe Veo would like to talk about that sometime. If not tomorrow, another day. But
where is Velo from?
Finland. He's from Finland.
Finland.
Yeah, he's been a friend for quite a while, and he's helped me a lot when we were doing a lot of bridging between the different digital modes using COM4Com or whatever it was that you use.
COM0Com.
COM0Com, that's right. So maybe he could do a little explanation of how that all works too.
That's COM with one M.
Oh, yes. Let's not get complicated. Oh, anyway, it's been fun. I hope you guys are enjoying this video cast, which we will share in our Telegram channel. And the link will be shared each morning before we start in the text portion. So if you'd like to come join us, just click on that link and download this virtual background image for the cafe. It kind of makes it more interesting looking, and we're just going to have some fun. So anyway, God bless you all. Have a great day. Thanks, Jim.
No, thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.